As we begin our service, whether you are here in the church building or using the magic of technology to attend service with us today, know you are welcome here. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you vote, whatever your race, age, ability, or gender, you are welcome here. Whatever spiritual paths you have traveled, if any, you are welcome here. Whatever spiritual paths you have traveled, you are welcome here. For our faith calls not for a particular creed, but to covenant to honor every person's worth and dignity. I am Gypsy Richardson, and I am a member of the worship team here at the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, where our mission is to support individual spiritual journey and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. I have a few announcements before we begin our service. Please wear masks at all times when in the building. Please use the clipboards at the end of each row to sign your name and telephone number in case contact tracing becomes necessary. Offering baskets will not be passed, but you can drop your contribution and your name tags in the bowls at the outside doors to the sanctuary. After the service, please leave as quickly as possible to allow air exchange in the church before the next service, and you may talk as much as you wish outside. The charity for this month is Sharing House, and we want to support the Power Up, the annual Sharing House Heating Assistance fundraiser on November 14, sponsored by the St. Philip's Episcopal Church, UUTC, and the Jewish community. To reserve a dinner, you can sign up in our social hall. A UUTC Social Action Team member will be there after today's service to answer any questions. This is to help anybody who is having trouble with paying their bills or such in regard to heat. Join Reverend Bob Rangillian on, I suddenly thought, on Tuesday, October 26th at 7 p.m. for an evening discussion of environmentalism sustained and guided by religion. One more, there is a need for more people willing to usher at the two services, particularly at the 11 o'clock service. Please speak with me after the service if you are willing to usher. Enjoy the music that we will have today without singing for the time being. Please dance, sway, clap, or hum softly behind your mask. All of those are fine. If there is a deep joy or concern in your heart to share with the community, ask the usher for a piece of paper and the ushers will give them to you, and you can write down what you want. Also, if you are listening virtually, please write your concerns in the chat function. As we move deeper into our service, please silence your cell phones and other devices. Now we will call worship, and our first hymn is number 318, We Would Be One, and it will be on the screen.
of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which bends our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free. Well, hello everyone, and I love that. I love that opening hymn. Thank you so much. I will be speaking of very deep things later in this service. I'll have a little song for you later, but we have other parts of the service to come next. Carry the hymn that we just had throughout all the message of today. Thank you.
I found the opening words from a book entitled The Sum of Us by Heather McGee. They correspond with the theme for this morning's service. They are from Lift Every Voice and Sing by James Weldon Johnson. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. I will read the chalice reading before I light the chalice. The chalice reading is entitled A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Doesn't work with a mask on. While John Austin plays the music to send our children out, Cadence, who will be lighting the chalice for the CRE.
Well, before that, can I share my words of wisdom?
You can certainly share your words of wisdom. Sorry, I forgot about that. I learned. I haven't done it in a while.
This is good. Well, we keep switching things up, so.
Well, it didn't stay lit.
I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me. Agree with me. And then the song ends. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I'm just going to ask you to turn to somebody near you and say, I need you. You need me. I need you to survive. Can you say that out loud? I need you to survive. Now, this is a song that was written by David Frazier. It's on YouTube and in different versions. The one that I love listening to is Glenn Thomas Rideout. Glenn Thomas Rideout from the Ann Arbor congregation as minister of music. And back in 2016, the recording that's on YouTube is within a UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association service about Black Lives UU. And he sings this and then has a choir sing it along. And I learned how to sing it in the context of a Unitarian Universalist choir. That song, those words of wisdom are something very special. And I've sung it with colleagues and in UU contexts. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. I need you to survive. We often, as Unitarian Universalists, start thinking about how we can be self-sufficient. We're raising our children to grow up and be their own person. We're glad to reach out to one another when we're sick, but we don't want to intrude sometimes too much. And there's a whole mix and a balance between the fact that we are individuals wanting to strive to be all that we can be, but we need that for the other people too. Our lives don't work without people who know how to make vaccines. Our lives don't work without friends who can help us discover something new that we would love to do. I didn't know that I would like certain foods until I was over my friend's house. I didn't know what I would be moved by emotionally until I heard a symphony play. We need one another to survive. We are a part of this interdependent web. As we are in this month of cultivating relationship, let's please remember that. Try singing that song to your worst enemy, your most nasty, cranky neighbor. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's family. Try it. I don't know if they'll sock you. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe they won't ever bother you again because they don't want to come near you. But to approach people and say, hey, you big bully, I need you to survive. Whether you can actually sing it out loud in that moment or ever, certainly in a time of stress, it's kind of hard to think up the song. But if you can put that in your mind just sometimes, it'll make a huge difference in this world and the way we relate to one another. If we think we need each other, if we think we are needed and we need each other, that we're all part of the same family, it makes a huge difference. Now, I heard that somebody is ready with a candle to come forward. Well, come on up. And as you lead the children out, we're all going to stand and wave you out as John plays the music. Excuse me a moment. My mask tells me I need to do this. I will be assisting Gypsy in the lighting of the candles for the cycle of life. I will take the chalice light.
We light a candle for all the frontline workers who continue to put their lives on the line to help us. We light a candle for all the people in the world who are in peril. We light a candle for the environment. May it continue to flourish. We light a candle for our democracy. May it survive the current upheavals. We light a candle for all the joys, sorrows, and milestones shared in the chat rooms from people listening virtually. We light a final candle for all the joys, sorrows, and milestones that remain unspoken.
I invite you to stretch, breathe, ground yourself, and enter into this time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here know of the trials and travails of those who are in our midst. Our hearts reach out to those who are suffering, those with medical conditions, surgeries, and recovery from surgeries, those who have been affected by the pandemic. In particular, this morning, a joy from this congregation. I saw my daughter-in-law, who is a COVID long hauler last weekend for the first time in 2 years. She's not at 100%, but she is better, and I am grateful. May our prayers of gratitude go out for all who are in our lives, hanging in there. May the lights of each of these candles, the meditations of our hearts, be held now in a brief moment of silence. In the names of all those remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen. Blessed be. I want to look this way all morning. I am grateful for the sunlight streaming through what was a very misty morning, through the stained glass, over the shoulders of Rabbit there, and streaking some color down here. We live in a world with so many blessings, with so much that's given to us which we have no control over. Sunlight. Some things we do. The generosity of the artwork in this room, the generosity of the creativity of the people around us, each of us giving something of our time, talent, treasure, and trust to this lovely congregation, building, and wider community. And so as I look at the sunlight streaming through, I also look out at each of you and pretend to be seeing you at home over this video, and thinking of the ways in which each of us is glowing as well. Whatever you have to give, whether you're pushing a button on the computer to give right now to Sharing House or to this congregation, or you're buying an extra ticket to an electric bicycle raffle, or you're going to make brownies for Power Up, or whatever it is that you give. However it is that you sacrifice something of yourself, may we bask in this glow. And everything that you give in love, we say thank you. Thank you. Reading that I have for this morning, I substituted, switched around what was going to be included in a sermon quote and what was going to be the reading. Marta Valentine, and I have quoted from Marta before, wrote this, calling it a delicate turning. It was part of a sermon delivered back in 2019 as part of a Sunday morning worship at General Assembly in Spokane, Washington. This excerpt says this: it's time to throw out our exceptional identity and humble ourselves. We've always done good in the world. It's in our DNA. The question is, are we ready to do better for our own people? Because the world includes every person in our faith, many of whom have been microaggressioned right out the door. It is the silent revolving door that many do not want to acknowledge. It is time to look at ourselves, not just in our faces, but in our souls, and ask ourselves, who are we really? Which Unitarian Universalism are we taking into the future? If we have no intention of taking it to the promised land, then let's just acknowledge that. Let's Marie Kondo our unfaithful practices and release what's no longer serving us and make room for what will. How can we save the world if we can't save ourselves? Remember, I say this because I love you and I need you to survive. But I also need to say this, and I speak only for myself. I'm running out of truths to tell and ways of saying them. It's time now to keep this beloved faith from fracturing. Moreover, in this delicate turning, let us remember that before anything, ante todos somos seres humanos, we are human beings who have chosen to travel together, to make a new, more just world together. We must continue to choose each other as companions if we are to accompany one another. I've chosen in this month of cultivating relationship a moment in which to elaborate on the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. It hasn't been adopted yet. It's not officially on the floor of any vote for our General Assembly. And yet, since 2013, this particular idea of an 8th principle has been floating around out there. And one by one, congregations are deciding to adopt it. In a world, what is it? I say it in the movie trailer voice. In a world which is fractured by divisions. The 8th principle is a sticky point, a pointed message to Unitarian Universalists saying we have to fix what we need. We need to Marie Kondo stuff we don't need to bring into the future. And so I will go a bit into the 8th principle. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. Some of you know the next words are the inherent worth and dignity of each individual and support of ourselves and spiritual growth and justice and equity and compassion in human relations. But the 8th principle would add, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions, meaning right here at UUTC. Now, the official statement around this from the commission, the study commission, which is charged with making a proposal to the Unitarian Universalist Board in January of 2023. Okay, we're gonna work on this, folks. Like 10 years after this started. Paula Cole-Jones, person on multiculturalism and anti-racism from the district I came from up in Pennsylvania, doing that 2013. This process, the official wording says, of examining and possibly revising Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws is a scheduled effort of the Unitarian Universalist Association Board, demanded by the bylaws themselves. The study commission, who's been charged with making this proposal to the UUA board on January of 2023, has tremendous respect for what the 8th principle movement has accomplished and is accomplishing within Unitarian Universalist communities. More than the language of the 8th principle itself, we are moved by the ongoing conversations about what it means to be accountable to each other and how we must, through our actions, take on the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression as an inextricable part of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Back in 1984, the revision to Section 2 of the bylaws was taking place, and the principles and the purposes are put together, and the process soon had something come from the grassroots, which was to add a seventh principle, the seventh principle being respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are all a part. I misquoted it slightly, but it's that interdependent web one that's there. That was, again, a grassroots, wait a minute, we're not pulling this out of history, old books. We're pulling this out of our knowledge that we're part of an interdependence. I need you. You need me. I need you to survive. We're all part of God's family, as the song went. Or like our first hymn, something of, we would be one. And we've taken it to also include the environmentalism that we have. Come Tuesday, please fill this room on Tuesday. As we talk about, have a little dialogue about the religious grounding of environmentalism. And if you're here, or all right, so if you have to watch it online, I'll show a picture of me from 3rd grade. All right? We tend to then jump in, as Unitarian Universalists, to find ways of taking action on environmentalism or showing up for some kind of interfaith thing where we're interdependent, like the Power Up, where we're going to be trying to get the funding to where it's needed in our community. Buy a meal. Fund our interconnected web of all existence right here. What we have in our principles so far speaks to justice, equity, and compassion, speaks to the inherent worth and dignity of everyone. That's regardless of skin color, some designation of race, or an acknowledgement of class. We learned long ago as Unitarian Universalists how we were, using the new term, microaggressing people, when we spoke to them at the door as greeters, as if we were welcoming them the first time into a country club. Oh, where did you go to college? What do you do for a living? It's like, I'm here for religion, please. I'm unemployed. I dropped out of high school. I'm here to see if your religion fits me. And yet all our literature was pretty much based on how to build a country club. We had to learn. We had to stretch about the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and learning about diversity in congregations that may not have started very diversely. In this congregation, and starting so much later, we're talking a quarter century ago, got through past that stage. We began to find people of different backgrounds and different life walks who, young or old, or rich or poor, or educated or self-educated, or challenged emotionally, mentally, that this place could be a place for everyone. And where does it come for anti-racism? Well, it's said that you can say that you're not racist and that you embrace everybody, but what's the action you're taking? Because what I was taught as I was coming through theological school is that Unitarian Universalists have figured out that if you are not working against racism, then you aren't anti-racist. You're just kind of there. Now, I speak to you as someone with a whole lot of layered privileges. Growing up in this society in the late 20th century with a particular skin color, assigned male at birth, advantages, Constitution that doesn't mention any gender explicitly except males. You know, I come with a lot of privilege. There are a lot of times in which I can think, oh, well, isn't that interesting, this idea of us trying to be, as a part of our principles, trying to be anti-racist with the word action in it. Not just, we believe these things. Oh, we have it in our hearts. We sing, we would be one, and that's good. But no, what actions are we taking? That's what the eighth principle is saying, and I'm like, 2013, wow, that does seem like a long time ago. Wow, I've changed since 2013. Yeah, but how has Unitarian Universalism changed? I was just in Minneapolis for a men's retreat. I was told that it was George Floyd's birthday while I was there. I know that as I walked around different parts of the city, I did see at the public library big banner, mural kinds of things over the door with George Floyd and diversity lifted up. If since 2013 there's this idea that maybe, a grassroots idea that maybe we should be taking action on anti-racism as a core principle of what we believe, how come it hasn't happened yet? Me and my privilege is like, oh yeah, I got distracted. I had to deal with this political upheaval, or I need to decide whether or not I'm getting a booster shot. It's kind of like being top of the food chain and like not having to worry too much. But there are a whole lot of people in this congregation I've just mentioned who economically or to other struggles don't have the wake up and take action against racism ability. And yet I have all the privilege and could. It's interesting to me, Gypsy found this reading I'm going to quote next. I thank Gypsy for this. It directly relates to the sermon on this eighth principle because it is talking to the Unitarian Universalists of another congregation, not us. That's another congregation being talked about here. It's a reading entitled Doing Work That Needs to Be Done by Shannon Long, who's a member of another congregation someplace else. She's also helped found or be part of the beginnings of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. There are UU congregations that haven't adopted the eighth principle or who have voted against it because they feel our other principles cover it. But they don't. The other principles absolutely do not cover it. The eighth principle is about action. It's about actively dismantling racism. It specifically speaks to dismantling racism within institutions, our institutions. Unitarian Universalist congregations are notorious for saying we want more people of color to come through our doors. And that we don't understand why they're not there. Why they used to be here or visited once, but they're not around anymore. If our congregation isn't adopting the eighth principle, or perhaps your congregation's considering voting against it, there's your answer. What comes next is hard to hear. Shannon says this as a person of color. She says, to me, a vote against the eighth principle is a vote against me, against our principles, against love. The eighth principle is about doing the work that needs to be done, that work that you think you're doing as individuals and as a congregation, but you're not really doing. By adopting this principle, it would actually show that you really do love and care about the community. I've been in enough Unitarian Universalist circles to have heard the pain behind those words. I can't convey in her voice, Shannon's voice, the pain that would have come through. But I have heard from my colleagues of differing racial identities than the one that I carry. I have heard from visitors. I even was asked once by somebody who didn't quite fit what everybody else seemed to be in the congregation. It wasn't race in this case, but it was some other thing. And that person came to the church auction and bought my sermon and asked me to preach on how unwelcoming my congregation was. There are times when we need to hear back reflection, but we're all such great people. Every time I join with my friends at the U congregation and close off this nice tight circle of friends, it's just so wonderful to see everybody. And then you realize, yeah, except the people who are kind of floating around wondering. Now, I said to keep the first hymn in mind, We Would Be One, because that one is talking aspirationally about being that loving community in old 20th century language, but the beauty of it. I need that because there are times when I sit in on these discussions myself, and I'm been stretched a lot with anti-racism training. I need that. And the words of my colleague Victoria Safford, who said, the goal of beloved community is reconciliation, not to destroy your opponent, nor to cast them out, but to stay in the struggle till love wins. There are people in our movement, and I hope I'm one of them, who stay in the struggle. The moment some button is pushed in me that gets a knee-jerk reaction, well, I'm not racist. Wait, don't talk to me about that. I've always been nice to other people. Always. Never am I bad to anybody else. I'm totally self-aware of where I am in society. Get all defensive. The goal of beloved community is reconciliation, not to destroy, not to have people dwelling in shame or feeling different or cast out, but to stay in the struggle till love wins. And I'm introducing this eighth principle topic because I think we need to struggle with it. I think we're going to need to talk about what it is that love wins if we are going to be active with one another and in ourselves. Brian Stevenson says we like to celebrate. Oh, I remember back in 2013 when that new step was being taken, I was on a bus with fellow Unitarian Universalists on a NAACP bus going down, and we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King Jr. And there were people on that bus who had gone the first time, now passed away. I'm seeing somebody nod in this room. I was there. Yeah. So I bring my kids along, get a sense of what it is to go to Washington as part of a celebration of racial justice. It's interesting, folks, and I don't have the exact quote of the survey, but back in 1962, white Americans were surveyed, how is America on race right now? And they said it's really going well. There's a whole lot of privilege of not seeing what the 1960s then revealed. No, it's not going really well. Or even in this century, in this decade, in this year. But Brian Stevenson said this: I want to talk more about the civil rights era, though not the lens of celebration. We're too celebratory of civil rights these days. We have these 50th anniversaries. Everyone's happy. Everybody's celebrating. Nobody's talking about the hardship. It's almost as if the civil rights movement was this 3-day event. On day one, Rosa Parks didn't give up her seat on the bus. On day two, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. led a march on Washington. And on the third day, we signed all of these laws. And if you think about history in that way, you minimize the trauma, the damage, the divides that were created. You can't segregate and humiliate people decade after decade without creating long-lasting injuries. Our newest project is really just trying to introduce the same concept, some concept, of what transitional justice requires, some commitment to truth and reconciliation, to being together is what I'm hearing. Through the struggle, to remember the struggle. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me. Agree with me. You are important to me. I need you to survive, to truncate the lyric there. I need you to survive. And to do that, that means even during our angry times, during the times in which Unitarian Universalists are really good. I agree with what needs to be done. I just don't like the way it was done. Well, yes, we do need to improve things, but maybe not that way. It said in a quote that I was reading as I was preparing for this, that liberals, maybe not all liberals, so you can sneer at the liberals, but I'll speak as a liberal, that maybe we would love to walk the path with one another, arm in arm. But please don't make me choose that path. It's a bit rocky. The important thing to remember is if we don't take the rocky road, we don't find the liberation of actually knowing one another, beginning to know ourselves in relation to those who we need to survive, to understand ourselves in that context. Speaking of why in 1962 most white Americans thought that race relations were so much better because, well, Emancipation Proclamation of nearly 100 years early. Or, well, now there's no more segregation. Like, yeah, 1962. It's all gone. Toni Morrison put it this way, and I want to lean into this one. A good deal of time and intelligence has been invested in the exposure of racism and the horrific results on its objects. Seems both poignant and striking how avoided and unanalyzed is the effect of racist inflection on the subject. The scholarship that looks into the mind, imagination, and behavior of slaves is valuable, but equally valuable is a serious intellectual effort to see what racial ideology does to the mind, imagination, and behavior of masters. I read a quote from a founder of the United States of America, one of those founding fathers from Virginia months ago in one of my sermons, of saying how awful slavery was affecting the slave-holding class. We don't often study what we get as damage in a society that's still not anti-racist enough. I'll close with a quote from my colleague Natalie Fenimore, who I knew as a colleague in Ministry of Religious Education, serving in a congregation now where I had done my internship, but I knew her from when I was on the board of the Liberal Religious Educators Association. Later, she became president of that board, and her other leadership in our association. She said, Shirley Chisholm, can we even remember back to that? Shirley Chisholm was asked why she, as a black woman, was running for president. You don't have a chance. Why are you doing that? People would say. And she said, because I'm in love with the America that does not yet exist. Natalie Fenimore says, and that's how Unitarian Universalism is also. She speaks as a person of color. I am in love with Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist, but I have to hold both a love for that thing and the love for the reality. It does not yet exist. It will probably not exist in my lifetime, says this UU minister of color. She goes on to say, I don't think it will in that of my children either. But I can't deny my love for it. You know, wanting to be there in that struggle, that's why I'm fighting. May we listen again to the words of the proposed eighth principle. It's actually not even a draft, and it won't be until January of 2023. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Thank you. Our closing hymn, number 287, is Faith of the Larger Liberty, something of the echoes of our past which might, without explicitly saying anti-racism, might help realize we're grounded in always looking at liberty, freedom, unbinding ourselves and those who have led us there. I'm going to ask you to rise for this one. Sway as you wish, hum under your breath. I'll put my mask back on and sing the words that'll be appearing on the screen. of the larger liberty, source of the light expanding, law of the church that is to be, old bondage notwithstanding, faith of the free, by thee we live, by all thou givest, and shall give, our loyalty commanding. Heroes of faith are every age, far seeking, self-denying, wrought and increasing heritage, monarch and creed defying, faith of the free, in thy dear name, the costly heritage we claim, their living and their dying. Faith for the people everywhere, whatever their oppression, of all who make the world more fair, living their faith's confession. Faith of the free, whate'er plight, thy law, thy liberty, thy light, shall be a blessed possession. As I extinguish this chalice, please carry it with you. In the words of Dr. David Breeden, may we be all in for our beloved community. May we be all in despite the challenges. May we be all here for beloved community. May each of us be ready for the beauty because we long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community. May I see the beauty of you in community, of us in community. May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together. We join here for beloved community. May you go out with this as your blessing, with this as your hope and your dream, with the will to make it so, and to come back again to this place in love, this special community. Blessings on all of you.